Hi guys, stop the presses. We have Jacob Rees-Mogg admitting he was wrong. It was a very clumsy way for the right honourable gentleman of the 19th century, but he admitted he was wrong. Wonderful. Well, not quite. He claims in this interview with Nick Ferrari that he was wrong, but for the right reasons. What the heck? Have a listen to Mogg realise that he's in a hole that he has dug himself, and instead of admit failure and call for a rope to pull him out, he keeps on digging. Amazing stuff, this.
I always enjoy your candour during our conversations, Mr. Rees-Mogg. I wonder if I can take you back a number of years. This is you and I speaking in June 2018, when I asked whether there might be queues at Dover.
There'll be no need for checks at Dover, but it will be an ability to ensure that the roads keep running around Dover, even if there are delays at Calais. The delays will not be at Dover, they will be at Calais.
The delays will not be at Dover. You'll be aware 2 weeks ago it was actually declared a critical incident. Some people spent 12 hours in their cars, lorry drivers passed out, and children defecated in the lay-by. A response to what you said some years ago, Mr. Rees-Mogg.
Well, the response is that the delays are caused by the French.
But you said there'd be no delays at Dover, Mr. Rees-Mogg.
Yeah, but they are French-created delays.
Well, first of all, you said back in 2018 that there would be no checks. And because there would be no checks, there would be no delays. So when Jacob Rees-Mogg said back in 2018 there would be no checks, either he didn't understand or he was lying. Because leaving the European Union would require checks. Jacob Rees-Mogg either didn't understand that, but was very confident about it, of course, or he was lying. Which is it?
But they are
French
at Dover,
have decided,
Mr. Rees-Mogg.
and
Are
they
you
are at
prepared
Dover,
to apologise that you got that wrong?
Yes, of course I got that wrong, but I got it wrong for the right reason, if I may put it that way.
The arrogance of this guy. The sheer arrogance. I got it wrong, but for the right reasons. So when you said there would be no checks, let's ignore the delays for a moment, because he said back in 2018 there would be no checks. And now there are checks, of course, because the UK is outside the European Union. The French have to check people's passports. They have to check if people have a stamp, and they have to see if they have stayed in the country a number of days. This is a consequence of leaving the European Union. You have to check this. And Jacob Rees-Mogg said in 2018 there would be no checks.
Expand.
The point I was making was that the only delays would be caused by the French if they decided not to allow British people to pass through freely.
Why would they let British people pass through freely? I know Jacob Rees-Mogg has this exceptionalism. He believes in British exceptionalism, but you decided to become a third country. You decided to leave the European Union. You decided to leave the single market. The checks have to be carried out. You wanted the checks carried out. You said we need to take back control of our borders. We need to set up a border between us and the French. There have to be checks carried out. We don't want freedom of movement. We don't want goods or people flowing across the border unchecked. Now, it's strange how he said that there would be no checks back in 2018. He demanded checks, and now he's complaining about the consequences of those checks and saying, well, it's not our fault, it's the French. So you wanted the French to carry out the checks, I presume, and now you're saying it's the French's fault for carrying out the checks.
They have decided to do that. They failed to get people to turn up. And
it has nothing to do with failing to get people to turn up. If you have thousands of people turn up at a port, at a crossing, doesn't matter how many staff you have, it takes time. And there was a journalist who went down to Dover and calculated the time it took to check people's passports. And they have to check them because it's a frontier of the European Union.
And that is what caused the delays in Dover, because we have juxtaposed border controls, which means that we check people in Calais and the French check people in Dover.
This has been the case for a long time now. There's nothing to do with Brexit. Incidentally, there's one gate open, I think, in Calais where the British check, and they're not really checking anyone.
And actually, that means that if the French don't operate their system properly, we get the delays. It's why I was saying that British people might think that going to Portugal is more fun because the Portuguese want us to go and the French are being very difficult.
This has nothing to do with the French or the Portuguese. Now, wait till you hear his excuse for that.
And why should we go and spend our hard-earned money in France if the French don't want us?
Are you suggesting we boycott one of our closest European neighbours, Mr. Rees-Mogg?
I'm not suggesting a boycott. I'm just suggesting that Portugal has made e-gates available to British tourists and that there's something to be said for supporting people who support you.
E-gates are at airports. You can scan your passport at an e-gate because we're talking about hundreds of people. Now, I think there are e-gates also at the ports, but if you're in a car and you have to check your passport, it takes time. It takes much longer. And we're talking about thousands of people boarding a ferry, while we're talking about hundreds of people boarding a plane. It's going to take much longer at the port because you have a car and you have a family with you and they all have to be checked. While at the airport, there is no car. The luggage is checked on the plane and then you pass through with your e-passport at the e-gate, sorry. A completely different scenario. Jacob Rees-Mogg said back in 2018 there would be no checks. You can go back and listen to it yourself. No checks. There are delays because there are checks, and he's blaming the delays on the French. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.